Hey folks, you're very welcome back to another episode of the Meditations on Movement podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. This is Adam O'Sullivan. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of an interview. I'm just going to be asking Adam various questions about, his history, how he got into the industry in some way, how he got into a movement practice, all those sort of things. I feel it will be a necessary little meander through how someone actually exposes themselves to this sort of work, their thoughts, their opinions, and certainly someone who I respect. It's a way of getting into his brain, seeing how he looks at these various different things. So not just my perspective, but his, hopefully. So I'm thinking, fingers crossed, this is going to be a good opportunity for you guys to listen in on something like this. Okay, so first off, you're very welcome. What's the crack?
Thank you very much
How are you,
for
sir?
having me. I'm good. It's good to see your face.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah.
In terms of keeping things on topic, I suppose what I'd like to know is, what is your main background in movement since you were very young? I always feel myself when I think about this question, I start to look at all the various things I was thrown into as a kid and just how I found myself navigating all of those things first. What was that like for you?
From a young age, I think the first thing that, like yourself, I was thrown into athletics. So it was like 100-meter sprints, high jump, long jump, a lot of that stuff. That was the experience with athletics, and then I kind of drifted in and out of things. Like, if I'm being real, like a lot of the stuff, I think when you're young, you're kind of just doing it, and athletics was one of them that I was really good at. Like I kind of shined through on the 100-meter sprint and high jump and long jump, but kind of went in and out of things. So I did a little bit of kickboxing, and skateboarding. Then I got more into the extreme sports. Nice. Skateboarding, parkour and stuff like that I was a little bit into when I was younger, and then I think it transitioned over time then into more bodybuilding and weightlifting. That's where it kind of went after a good few years.
So definitely when you were younger is a lot more sports, and then that probably ventured out into things that you started to actually show more interesting. The athletics, it seems as if it's kind of it was the same for me when I started off with a lot of my things. Like, you probably express the tiniest bit of interest, or even the influence from the parents is there.
Yeah, the influence from the parents. It's kind of like I was good at it. That's the thing. Like, I went in I think I always remember the key ones. Like, I went into athletics, and then I'd end up I think it was in 4th class. I was in a different school at the time, and I got a chance to race every year. I basically was in 4th class, I came first place, and then they let me go into 5th class, and I came first place in that. And then it was kind of something I was naturally good at, but it wasn't something that I was really strongly pulled towards. So I kind of drifted away from that. But yeah, I think that was the early days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think when you're younger, right, it's a case of like other people express an interest in something, in the sense that you're encouraged to continue on with it just based on the fact that you're potentially good at it. Like, as you said, you were winning races, so it kind of just makes sense that you would continue on and move in that direction.
I think it's that. And then I think like outlets, like I see it now with younger people, it's like it's a necessary need for that the amount of energy that you have when you're younger. I think then with that, after a while, I think I just watched Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary, and it's like you just get bored. You're just like, this is my one, so what? And it's like, let's move on. Like, give me something else, So I think that was the case with running and stuff. I kind of just went out of that then, and then I think a little bit later on it was mainly the gym.
Yeah. So what age would you have been around that?
It was much later on. So this will probably feed into some of the things we're going to talk about later. But it's like the reason why joining the gym. It's like I was very athletic and whatnot when I was younger, but then slipped off the path and kind of was a little bit unhealthy, and very much so lost a lot of poor habits and whatnot, and ended up then finding the gym, got involved in bodybuilding, just general fitness. I was getting back into, started doing running again, and kind of blended the two of them for a couple of years. And then at some point I kind of was like, right, I want to shift more towards like functional training. I was picking up some niggles and stuff like that from training myself, and then that's when I started getting interested in taking it serious. I got a personal trainer, and then started studying for it after, like, so.
Okay.
it was a good few years of mainly just gym work.
Yeah. And it was a lot of figuring it out on your own, it would seem.
Yeah, I got a program from somebody for like €10 in the gym.
Yeah.
I got a program for like €10 and then just stuck to that program until I got bigger. Like it just
So it worked.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
the
It's just
program did its job.
give you the basics and just continue doing them in progressive overload. And you're like, okay, because I was quite unhealthy when I first started the gym, I kind of cut out a lot of the bad habits and then put on like I think when I was like 18, I was just saying this to my dad the other day, I think I was like maybe 9 stone, something like that when I was around 18. So I was very skinny.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, let's go. And I put on maybe like a stone, like 1 to 2 stone in the first year, maybe more. I don't remember the exact number, but I got big like after the habits got in order. Like so.
Nice.
Yeah. It was nice, but I did that for quite a while. You know, the gym, and then again it comes to that kind of fork in the road.
Yes.
And you kind of go, right, well, why am I doing this? You know, what purpose is this serving? Where am I going? I think a lot of it, like the body image kind of side of things, you come to them realizations. I think me and you have chatted about before. Is this, is it only that? You know, is it only that? And I started to question it a bit, and then that's when I was like, right, I'll get somebody to actually help me with this. And I got the guys up the road in the performance clinic, Albert, he kind of helped me out. I got kind of just my more kind of functional training, let's say, and started working with that, and did that for a couple of months, and then I was like, right, I'll start kind of programming again myself, and then went to study then after, you know, a while.
So interesting then, like a lot of the questioning of the why sort of bled into you then seeking more help and wanting to do it yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's the kind of it's a thing, isn't it? Like just being humble and just going, right, I'm a little bit lost here, you know, and getting help. And I think that really served me, because it was the style of training that I was doing in the gym was, you know, very isolated. And also just, I think there's a few layers probably that I can say now, like, you know, I think when you're working on your own in the gym regularly, and then you have some sort of input and a community and other things like that, it feeds into more energy, you know, and it's hitting a few things on the head. So with that, I think going up to them was just like, Jesus, my conditioning is shocking. You know, I thought I got a lot better and, you know, I was a lot fitter, but I was quite big. So with him, it was like, okay, I want to move a little bit better. I want my joints to be moving a little bit better, and I'd like to drop down some of the size.
Yes.
I think after him, actually, I tried out CrossFit as well. Yeah. I did a good bit with him, and then I joined CrossFit for a while. But at the time, I think the way the coach seen bodybuilding and everything else, so I just thought it was too rigid. So I was like, good luck, you know. I think we talked about this before. It's like bodybuilding is shit, and this is good. You know. So I didn't like that, because it's good to take something from everyone. You know, like they're all useful.
I think each part of the journey where you're suddenly veering off in some direction and you're saying to yourself, okay, cool, I've been doing this for a period of time and now I'm going to go do this. You kind of forget in some sense that it's like, oh yeah,
that was
the
a stepping
history
stone.
Is there. That's a stepping stone that you kind of needed to get over. And in some sense, like, I'm always glad when I look back, you know, at the time I would have been like, oh Jesus, I wasted a lot of time with a lot of the bodybuilding work that I would have done. But I forget in some sense, like the tissue quality, the strength, the endurance, the muscle endurance, the local muscle endurance, all of those different things that have been built over the years that I now get to use to my advantage whenever I go and venture into something new. It's like, yes, there could have been more time spent on such and such a thing, but I have that now to go and do.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's always respecting it, isn't it? It's always respecting it, going like, your past self was doing the best, but they knew at the time, and they're like, that's what that version of me wanted to do.
Yes.
I wanted to, you know, I was skinny and out of shape. I wanted this thing. So once that's over, it's gonna happen again throughout the journey, isn't it? Like you'll see it. I've heard that as well, that voice saying, what was I doing? I was wasting time. But you weren't really, because you're doing something. You know, the other side of it is you do nothing. You know, you do nothing towards it, and you maybe stay fixed, and you're like, you don't reach out for help, or you don't ask somebody like, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm not gonna get, you know, you could just say, yeah, no, I know what I'm doing, and just not get a mentor, or you know, you could stay in that. But I think it's important to just always keep that perspective that everything, or every phase, or every kind of moment, they're adding to the next level, or the next thing that you're gonna do. Which you can see it with a lot of stuff that we studied at, like, you know, in Vienna. Like there's certain points like, shit, that was a waste of time doing that. But it's like, no, because let's say handstand or something like that, you did waste time with this. You could have done it better, but then that was leading you to going, this is annoying me that I'm not getting it, and then I've tried out this new system and this worked for me. You know, it's a necessary kind of wobble in the journey. You know.
Yeah, like what always speaks to me in those circumstances is, what was it internally that caused me to be interested in something that I was doing? Like, what is it? It's kind of like what you said in terms of the fork in the road, where you're kind of just like, is the aesthetics what it's all about? It might have been at a certain point of time, and that's what helped you and got you interested, and there was a strong pull towards something, you know, something directed you somewhere, and it's then like, I suppose, putting it back into yourself, right? Or putting it back on yourself and saying, oh yeah, there was something there that brought me forward. So now, what am I seeking that has been done with from a self-image perspective? It's like, okay, I've explored that avenue, and I don't feel like I'm getting many more energy from it. I'm not getting something from it. Exactly. So now, what's the next thing that sparks my interest? Like, where does that interest now come from going forward into, as you said, you dipped your toe in CrossFit, you dipped your toe in this, in the more functional training. So it's like each one had something that you were trying to explore, trying to figure out.
You know, it's an experience. You kind of you need it. It's like, I don't know, sometimes it's a necessary part. It's a necessary part. Like doing something that's doing something that's meaningless. You know, because I'll use an example. When we were in Vienna, you know, I at one point, it was like, right, we'll try out this job, you know, like we'll do this in between, and that was great. Like I in between got some experience. You know, I've never, you know, I worked for a week, you know, in the bar. And I quit after a week because I was like, this is awful. And I was like, great, that was a great experience, because I know I will never do that. Do you know what I mean? Now this is going off topic, but it's like it was great, because it was like, Jesus, I will never do that. That is rough. Like but that's a necessary part, you know. The same as some of these things of wasting your time. You're like, Jesus, that was, you know, that I could have done better.
It can be frustrating sitting with it and trying to think, like, in the immediate, it seems as if it's a waste of time, but then
after
give yourself
like,
a year or two back, and you're kind of like, oh wow, I really needed that at that time to be able to kind of realize, oh right, things could be a lot worse. You know?
Like, it's just funny, because like at the end of it, like, you know, the year later, I didn't even need it, you know. I just like, I need to do something, you know, outside of that. So it was funny, but I think it's always hindsight. You know, it's always hindsight. I think listening to you, I'm going off track, but
we'll pull it back in, don't worry.
Yeah, like the listening to you about when you came back to Ireland, and I was like, geez, I'm looking forward to that. And it actually has been really nice, where you have this space for a minute, and then you get to all this stuff. It points towards you needing to be more present when you're in that space. But the other side of it is, it does actually, it's great, because you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm you know, when I was in that moment, I was very lucky, and I didn't realize all the things that were actually going on. But you can point back to that when you're going through these phases, whatever you sign up to, or what next thing you go to, maybe how present are you going to be in that? That potentially, that's part of the problem, you know, why these things don't work out. But yeah, that's gone off a little bit far, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
It's like an awareness of how lucky you are, maybe within the scenario, that you just don't see at the time. You can get caught up in small things, and I think it's very easy for us, when we spent our time in Vienna, to have gone across and sat there and been like, oh yeah, the things that are still annoying me back in Ireland could still annoy me now. Remember, we said that the idea of going across for the year initially was, okay, let's invest from here. Let's actually say, I'm giving it a full year. And I'm very glad we did in that way, the way in which we had kind of committed to it, because it left us no room to question whether or not we had made the right decision. Because that's very easy to sit with, isn't it? While you're there, you're suddenly questioning, should I even be here? Am I enjoying it? Am I doing whatever? It's like, we just got on with it. And that was great, because it gave us enough distance then from everything that would have been in the back
potential
of the mind,
noise
playing there. Noise, so it meant that, having spent the time away from Ireland, coming back, you see it from a new perspective, and everyone says this about traveling, right?
Yeah.
You get a new perspective, and it is really transformational in the sense that you're back in an environment that you're familiar with, and you're like, oh yes, there are a lot of things that are kind of playing into my thinking, my influences, what's leading me in a certain direction, and then it's a question of, am I actually going the direction that I want to with things, or is the environment potentially feeding
that's a
into
big
that?
one. That is a big one now since I came back, and it's just, and the difference after having that experience in Vienna is like, no, I'm
There's
leading.
it's a hard
hard no.
Yeah,
Like I'm leading the ship, and that's it. Like, because it's very easy. Like I had a conversation with people to get pulled, and if you want to create the culture, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Then you been pulled into it, because we won't go into all that, but the dream that we went over, we can talk about it, but it's the dream interpretation, going into that and looking at what needs to be done. It's the reality of going, no, there's a certain thing maybe back at them past selves that we're talking about, that they were being pulled a little bit more. Like I was being pulled by lots of different things, but then when you've had that experience and you've learned and you've been around loads of people who are they're looking at life in a very different lens, in a very different lens compared to certain different lens from the most. It's not much people climbing across bridges and doing this stuff, day to day. You don't see it, but it's a very different outlook on life. And after coming back, it's like, well, like how do I get around more people like that, and people that want to expand and want to grow and learn, and and if I'm not able to have that straight away, then it just needs time, and intentionality is key. Like,
the growth from here doesn't need to be in the same way it was
like
then
weekly, every week, it could be every now and again, or just a matter of time of like, okay, like look, before, like we were working in the gym, we weren't meeting with other groups, and we weren't doing a lot of this stuff, so it's just a matter of time then that we kind of we meet them people and have them experiences. But
that's interesting, because I feel like this would be a good time to kind of maybe rewind back to what you were saying about, like, obviously your journey. We'd gone through the idea of how you kind of got into your first movement based thing, being athletics, and gone in that direction, and found yourself wanting to get into an industry where you're working with people and helping them from in a movement perspective, so personal training. So talk to me about kind of when things started from there then. What initially happened to you? What were some of the experiences that would have shaped what direction you had gone in from there? Because they obviously lead up to the point that we were just talking about. So
let's do that. The thing with when I started going towards functional training, looking at conditioning a little bit more, and like stepping away from bodybuilding and stuff, my sense of well-being was immense. Like I always remember meeting some of the guys outside, and they were like, why are you going to train on Friday? And I was like, because I feel unreal. Like, this is the best I've felt in ages, and this is when my health was a lot better. And I'll always remember that. And I kind of then at that point I was like, geez, I kind of want to do this all the time. And then I went, and I think it was what was I doing at the time? Oh, one of my friends, one of my close friends growing up, his cousin, told me that there's an up and coming course in UCD to become a coach, and I was like, right, let's go. And it was just it was like the same as Vienna. It was a very quick decision. I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I was working at the time, so worked full time doing that, studied, and then finished in UCD after a year. Went then from there, I was training the staff members in the GPO, doing kind of conditioning, and I was also working out minute in a gym, so I was from there to there part time. And then after that, I left the gym, and the day after that got an interview for David Lloyd.
Oh, interesting.
And
so they were all quite in quick succession.
I honestly, the thing with the gym, I didn't see eye to eye with the second gym that I was working in, and I said I'm gonna leave because
just the methodology.
Yeah, it was a lot of boot camps, and people were being injured left, right, and center, and I this is when I was going into more like taking care of people. Like, your duty of care was something that resonated with me a lot, because the famous saying, it's like treat it like your mom. like if you're training your mum or you're training your
Yes.
your granddad or something like that. And that wasn't for me what I was seeing, so I didn't like it. And then when I was looking through, I went to a workshop basically in UCD about online coaching and working online, and it was a free. We got, whoever was studying UCD got a free kind of entry point. And I met Lee there, our manager, and that was at the start of summer. Then I worked throughout the summer in them two places, and when I didn't see eye to eye with the guy, I said, right, I'm gonna leave. And the day after, I got an email from David Lloyd saying, you've got an interview. So I was like, this is fate, I'm getting that job, like it's it's over, like so went in, did the interview. They were really nice, and met all of the managers, and started there pretty quick after. And then that's when I started. I was on the floor. I kind of then was shifting towards, I was very interested in Edo.
Yes.
Well, he kind of, one of his videos, you know, the famous video that a lot of people look at, is this kind of thing.
I can't think of the name of it.
It's I'm not gonna voice it over, but it was one of them ones where I was just like, shit, that resonates with me. Like I like it. So I didn't go and work with him or anything, but I started looking into the gymnastic rings and started
The various elements.
training the muscle up. Doing a lot of gymnastic kind of stuff, and then the legs were kind of, I stuck to strength training, deadlift, squats, all that stuff. And that was the first, let's say, year I was kind of getting stuck into that. Got the muscle up, kind of trying to get the splits at the same time. I was pretty close to the floor, like a centimeter off, and I was like, right, did this. And when I got to the muscle up, it's another time for the fork in the road. I was like, I just never forget. It was like I was just like, this is not it.
Yeah.
It's just one of these things. It's like, it's great and all, but like, what is this? Yeah. So I got to that point. I was like, got the muscle up. I was like, grand, that's all right. And it's not very, it was a nice skill to get. It was great. There were some people then that started to work with me because they're interested in that kind of field too. And I think while I was doing that, it's a lot of animal movement and stuff that we messed around with, but that went off. That was just a cert I think we did.
Yeah, it's funny when I look back on it as the kind of each little thing that I'd been exposed to had something that I was obviously interested in, but it just wasn't quite the thing that I.
Yeah, where you
see parts of it and you go, yeah, that's really, really useful, and then maybe there's just a big turn left in terms of where that
actually goes.
And you're suddenly just like, this isn't right.
I just, it's one of the things you need to do it, but the animal stuff that we did was like that. I got hooked on that. Like it was one of the things, like I loved endurance stuff. Like it was one of the things it's a great buzz, and the energy with everyone that I did with in UCD, and the energy with the groups I did it with was just great. That was for a while alongside this stuff, teaching it, and we got good numbers in the group for the first while. They're just intense sessions for people, like we seen that. And then I think after a while, then it was kind of just going, right, I want to kind of split the sessions and just move well, have my joints feeling good, and it was kind of just that's what it was for a while. And I think when starting a personal training business, then when you're doing 1-to-1, you're kind of chocker blocked with the hours. Like you're doing sessions in between when you have an hour gap, and flying through a training session and whatnot. But that was the main focus for a while, and kind of just moving better, and that's how people then start working with me in David Lloyd, 1-to-1. A lot of the people that I'd work with is just to try and move better and not have as much pain, and try to slow down in a very fast environment was a big thing that I tried to teach and get people to do. Alongside that, then I always kind of, because it was movement was where I was kind of looking towards, I joined online groups. There was like, one of them was the Movement Guild. I can't remember the name of the first one, but it was with John Yun and Daniel and Majestic Mirth, I think his name is. and a group of loads of people that were just amazing teachers. They looked at movement as like tasks throughout the week and just general movement and trying out different things all the time, like juggling and a lot of different things like floor work and that background. But for me, then that was a bit scattered. I liked it, and I liked it. They're all necessary parts of the journey, but it was scattered for me, and I found myself then going, I want to make progress. Like this is too all over the place, which can happen in movement.
So if I were to bring it back to, you said the fork in the road really was the muscle up.
The muscle up, yeah.
So how did the muscle up then dictate and influence your decision making from there? Then what were the reasons for getting into these various groups and these various things? Like I've always felt in some sense like I've admired your ability to continually expand and not be too rigidly defined by your thought processes. Like you've always had this openness to these different systems where it's something that's so present, what I feel, because of our influence of coming into it through personal training. You see this idea of no, you've got to teach your very specific way, and don't bother expanding out any further, because you've just got to teach. You've got to get used to teaching what it is that you're teaching.
I'm so glad you said that.
It becomes very much stuck. This is how I feel, and I've seen it over the years, and I've certainly tried to whip myself when I have myself too boxed in some way, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm forgetting that I can kind of continually need to expand. And once you've, it's not that even that you will ever expand enough, but there is a point of expansion that you start to kind of lock things into place. You kind of do start to see a little bit more of a coagulation of things together, that you then have, okay, this is where I'm going with things. But if you were to set yourself back to like when you were younger, when you were in your earlier 20s, you know nothing then, but you're told, you're told like, oh yeah, you're fine, you have the ability to kind of problem solve and go from there. So I've always felt that like it's only, as you said, that turning point with the muscle up that you feel, okay, there's not something's off here. That for me is a point in which a lot of people do meet, but they don't have that awareness to expand more, to go into an unknown scenario, to feel vulnerable, to feel like, oh yeah, fuck, I don't know anything about this system or this way of moving, like whatever it is, and I have to put on the dunce cap for a while and say, oh yeah, I'm lost here, and I need to start off from basics and build from there. It's such a powerful
thing to just say, I don't know. Like yourself, and like me when you first start, like you think but you I don't know, it's just saying I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm lost. It's like, it's scary, like and it feels awful. You're vulnerable, and it's like, it's a little bit of a weird space to be in for a bit, but like, Jesus Christ, sticking to the rigid kind of way that and I'm glad you said this, because that's what I didn't like in fitness, and I didn't like people telling me that this is how it is, because it's not like I by nature I'm a bit disagreeable, like I'm on the 50% mark, so it's something I just didn't like. It's like, why do I have to be able to squat 150 or deadlift 150 and then go out and do Cossack squats? This was the shit that was being told to me. It's like, first you need to train in this plane and get really strong there, and then I was like, why? I want adductors. I want my adductors to go out here. And that's what I think, I just had that kind of attitude towards it, going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to I want to do this. I was asking it all the time. It's like, no, you just need to do this. And it's like, why? Because this person in this book who studied with Russian athletes said that that's what it is. I think that's a lot of the stuff that I was like, right, good luck. And then I just stayed open with a lot of it. Like the groups expanded that openness, because I was like, it's letting go of even outcomes at certain points. Because when you're playing around with loads of different things, then you kind of go, at some point when you're messing around with loads of stuff, you do then start to go back to going, I want to see actual progress. But I think that's, again, it's some sort of perspective. Probably you need to keep going, this is adding up to something. It's adding up to something, experience points as a player in the game, or whatever it is. But it was nice. And also having the group, it's another side of it. Like, if you're training 4 times a week on your own in the gym, and then you're working with everyone in the gym, and then you're chatting to people from the gym, you start to lose the plot a little bit. I think you're just in there too much, and I think that's what happens later on in the story, that you need to expand out and listen
Mm-hmm.
to different perspectives, and that was really nice because these teachers come from backgrounds of dance, being part of them groups. I think from the muscle up was just like,
Oh, so sorry. I
yeah,
think I get where you are now. So it's the fact that when you were back in the gyms, it's like
yeah,
you're hearing these perspectives, you're hearing these rigid lines of thought and
yeah,
all that sort of stuff. So it's only when you went out to the groups to start to
see a
listen
different
in on
picture.
different ways of kind of looking at it that you start to go, okay, so there's lots more out there to be
Yeah,
explored.
yeah. John Young is a really, like, I appreciate him a lot as a teacher because of his mindset towards it. He has a different way of looking at things, and I think for me it was just going like, as something he put up recently was just like, this movement you start to feel pain because you've done it quite a lot, and it's like maybe it's not the movement, it's just maybe you try this and then it feels good, and that feeling good is just variety. And I've always liked that because it's like, yeah, I have lots of options then in this scenario, because you see it with people who have RSI, or repetitive strain injury. It's like they've just done the same movements year in year out, that circle of the machines in the gym, and then they get repetitive strain injury. It's like, yeah, because you haven't went outside this circle, and I think that's you've been automatized
line for so long, and you
robot
just
mode.
keep going after it.
Yeah. And this is a lot to be said to people who are in weightlifting, who I have spoke to a few guys in the gym recently, and it's not bodybuilding. You can't say bodybuilding is what did whatever to your shoulder and everything else, because bodybuilding's great. I am subscribed to some really good bodybuilders life programs, and they move well, and it's like, it's more that they move things around and they don't just stick to rigid things, and then potentially there's loads of ego and other things in there that were not really, I looked at, I was like, my body was in bits because I just kept doing the same things, and that's the way I looked at it, and I probably wasn't managing stress. And when you look at all them things, you're like, yeah, actually it's not this thing, it's how I was doing it, my approach and whatnot. But I think that's why it is really vital for people to try open up the spectrum, or open up and try different things, especially when it comes to your mind, because if you're going back towards the people who you heard, it is like you need to squat 150 to have strong legs, and it's like, what are we defining strength? Like, what if you can balance on a rail? Like, that's great strength in your legs. That's the way I looked at it, and I think a lot of teachers then I worked with were kind of on the same path. But yeah, that's kind of it. Like with a lot of that, I think you have to open it up first to experience all the variety, and then it does need some sort of taming in, because you can get lost in the movement sauce. You can really get lost, and you're playing. Like, this is the thing you'll hear. I think Marcello was saying about just playing, like you're just playing, but where's it going? Where's that play going? Like you do need to go out and have fun and play and enjoy it, but also you want to see some progress.
Respectable amount. Like, I think it's what you were saying with the muscle up being a thing of maybe too much on one polarity, where you're like, everything has to be,
it's all energy towards that.
It's energy towards an objective outcome, and saying this needs to be done by a certain date, and going in that direction, versus then pulling back and just saying, I just want to move for the sake of movement. And that's, both are necessary, but
they're necessary.
Sometimes you need to play with how much you're going to go with it. Like, I mean, we found with various elements that we started to play with in his systems, where suddenly you're thinking, okay, like, let's really refine in some of the precision jumping that we're doing, but then let's add variety when necessary. Those sort of things.
Like open sessions. That's really kind of, because then it brings into the forefront that you are playing and enjoying and going and exploring the environment, but you've got skill there as well. Like, you've learned how to jump, and you've learned how to coordinate yourself, and then you can actually go and play and do stuff. But I think, if it's looking at who are you speaking to and where are they coming from. And it's like, if you do nothing and you don't move too much, like, go and enjoy nature, go climb a tree, like, do anything, and that's great. Like, just go and do any movement is great. And then when you're someone who's a teacher, or you're more experienced, or you're a coach, then play and enjoy it, but also remember to try hone in and get better at some skills that will transfer to other things. Like I think that's something I seen in the first week when we went over and we were doing a open session with Marcello. I was like, okay, all this stuff that we did is coming up now in the open session.
Yes.
Yeah, which is really nice because it's meaningful. It's really meaningful to play, and then when you have skills in there and you can overcome really hard challenges, it's great. You know.
Well, let's pull it back then towards.
You'll probably have to do a lot of pulling back with me on this podcast.
That seems to
10
be
coffees deep.
the goal with where I'm supposed to be in this interview. So hopefully I'm keeping that as well.
Yeah, you're doing great.
You were talking then about the various groups that you'd started to join, the idea that you were kind of broadening your perspective then. How did this lead then towards, I suppose, the next jump to me in my eyes seems like when you started to work with Marcello? I mean, there was
dance and a few things in there between I didn't mention because we went off, but I started going to workshops like movement for theatre was the first one, and that was the first one I went to, and that was crazy. I was just like, I think I was blown away by kind of the presence in it. They a lot of theatre and dance and a lot that they do, a lot of kind of, you know, we've done a session where you're lying on the floor to get you to check your body, then check the sounds, and then they're doing a lot more kind of awareness, bringing a lot more awareness into how they move, because that's the question I asked. I was like, how do people in theatre and dance, how do they move so fluently? And that was something I was looking for. I was like, I want to, this what I was doing was a little bit rigid, so I was like, I want to move fluently and be able to move more gracefully, and that's when I started going to workshops. I did one for moving for theatre. There was one for dance, writing the language of the body, I think. That was in Dance Ireland, and they do like dance therapy and movement therapy and stuff like that. There was movement therapists at it that were kind of using these tools to help people with pain. Which was a great workshop, and in between that then I did contemporary dance for a year, 2-3 times a week, and then at the end of that year did a show in town, raising money for homelessness. We did it in Henrietta Street in this kind of setup of the tenements, and did like 2 nights of shows. And then that's when 2020 came, and the gyms were closed, and I started practicing parkour outside, just like a Wally, just going out and practicing parkour with Marie and Lee. It was like just going out and trying different things, balancing, jumping. We landed some movements off YouTube that we just copied, and then I was like, right, again, I was like, I need more assistance with this, and Marcello was watching for years, and I was like, all right, he's aligning with a lot because he's good at the environment, and then he's also really fluent, and he moves very gracefully, so I was like, let's go. And I did 9 months with him online during the lockdowns, and then that brings us to Vienna. So Marcello for 9 months, and then 2 years in Vienna with the school.
Very interesting. I imagine there's a lot of things that have sort of pointed you in that direction in a long way. Like you've touched on some of them there. It's funny to just, I'm sure looking back over it, right, we're talking about like these huge moments in time that you've gone through pretty intense experiences
100%.
to lead you to say, okay, why do I want to explore dance? Why am I finding this so interesting? And fascinating to me then how, I suppose, we've both gone through the experience of Vienna, right? And I'd certainly look back on it and saying that it's a huge transformational point, right?
Massive.
Yes.
Yeah. First time living abroad, for me and you as well, wasn't it? Yeah, it was your first time living abroad. You know, pre-COVID, like it was a crazy time. Like it was a very chaotic period, and then going from that to then I'm gonna go and join this, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day and talking about where it all started and everything, and it kind of just, it lit me up because it's like, it's such a journey. It was such a journey because chaotic period with COVID, and then coming out that, and then going to travel around to different communities across the world, and you know, getting to work with some amazing teachers and practitioners, like people who have had an immense impact in your life, like that is, it's just something to smile at, because you're like, wow, what a turn of events, you know, from pre and post COVID. Like never thought like be going and doing all this, but it just shows you, doesn't it? Like jump into a project without any kind of knowing where it's going. You know, and who knows where it's gonna go? Like right now, like where we are, and we're just like, who knows where it's gonna go? But it's probably gonna be great. Like you know,
the thing that comes to my mind with what you've said there is when people find themselves at these points in life where they know something isn't going well. It doesn't even have to be something like a negative emotional state like depression or anxiety or something like that. You just kind of know something else needs to be done. You know, I'm doing work, I'm doing my bits, I have my relationship, doing whatever, and it's like, it's not that anything is actually, it's not like you don't like any of them, it's not like you're going through something traumatic, you just know. It's a bit of faith, like, isn't it? Like something needs to be executed upon, some change is necessary, right? And I definitely feel like I was in a state where I was open to that before deciding to go across to Vienna, and I'm very glad that I did. You know, it's a full gung-ho. I'm in this 100%. I'm going to go into it. I'm not going to just dip my toe, because we've had this conversation before about where we've viewed people who dip their toe in, I think everyone can understand how there will always be people who will constantly, you know, dabble in one or two things, but never really invest enough quality time into it. You know, we could very much say that about the perspective or the things that we're doing from in terms of movement. Like, you know, we're taking it. We've been very lucky to work with people that have exposed us to the likes of things like capoeira, things like the floor work, bits of breakdancing, dance and stuff like that, where you're like, I'm not investing fully within that stuff in itself, but I'm exposing myself to the teachers that are gonna completely bring me forward in every aspect of whatever that system is, you know, and it's then becomes its own thing in my eyes anyway. That's where it's like, oh yes, this idea of exposure, you know, really deep and intense exposure into these things is what will give you the most more juice from it. For 100%. Sure, rather than the sort of tentative, oh, I'm just going to try this out but not really invest much time into it. Like, I mean, we've talked about it in various stages where how, you know, things for free are good in theory, right? You know, but how many times does the fact that something free like it massively... Just
think of what it does to kids. Think of what it does to kids that get free stuff all the time. Like, you know, it's if we really look at ourselves as kids, we can look at how certain things won't play out very well, and I stopped doing it. And they offered a free sessions in David Lloyd or whatever, and I just at one point was like, I'm not doing it. I don't care if I get business for whatever. I'm not doing it anymore. And it was I have that attitude with some of it, because I'm just like, well, like, why? I was like, no, I've other people there. Come on, let's go. Do you want to do it or not? And like I don't, like you're saying, I don't like to dip my toes into it. Like I don't think it might be like, look, I think it's one of the things, it might be a little bit like, well, like, you know, I don't have time, but like it doesn't care. Like, it's in the most plain English, straight up language. It's like, whatever it is that you want to do, if you want to learn to dance, or you get the handstand or whatever, it's going to take you to just invest fully into it, to really know it, because dipping your toe in and out, it actually breaks your own confidence after a while. Do you know what I mean? If you don't commit to something, because you kind of go in and you don't really take notes, or you're not paying attention. And then after a while, you're like, I'm not good, or all these narratives come in. But they could be a lot stronger and more empowering if you just stick at it. Stick at it for long enough, like it's where despite
those things even coming in, because they will, like, regardless of whether or not you like go.
Remember the first year, I'm shit. The narrative
that became the narrative. For the whole
I'm shit.
First year.
I'm a shit mover.
I was looking back on loads of the videos, and it was so funny, because like obviously we were there helping ourselves. I'm recording you, and right, like every time we'd finish something, you just hear one of us go, "Jeez, that was shit."
Yeah. So critical, like, and that's the other side of it. Is like this is where with some of the stuff that we've learned. Sorry, I'm sliding off the couch. Where we've learned is a big lesson for me on the journey was that getting the skill or getting the thing, you know, it's not as important as learning about yourself along the way and what traits you can maybe alter as a result of investing time and energy into this thing. Because the handstand, the only reason I'm doing it is to teach myself patience. Like it's to learn the skill, be able to teach it back to other people, and I want to share the experience and the joy that I've had. When I was over in Valencia, I was just like, this is going somewhere savage. I'm really happy with that. But the bigger picture is, it took me to really cool down my impatience, because that is the purpose of it for me. Is to become more patient.
Sure.
And it's worked. It's something that, if I set that intention, I say, look, you're impatient with a few things. Let's do something to challenge that, instead of just going, it's the skill. The backflip was the one that's going, oh jeez, I was gunning for that. But then it was like, I forgot what was around me. Like, you know, I forgot like the group. And then when I railed that back in and had to realize, I was like, I enjoyed the presence more of the group, and I enjoyed all the process a little bit more. And then, you know, it makes training and everything else a little bit easier. You know, that's it. I don't know if I'm explaining that right there, but it does make the process gets easier if you kind of give up that little having to get the skill, or I have to get this, or I need to succeed, or there's this bit dropping the expectations, in short.
I've noticed that along the way with where people can get quite stuck, and I think Marcello certainly talked about this, didn't he, where things can like mold and transform in such a quick period of time, you know, but it's not to dismiss the effort that's been put in. You know, you could just be at a certain plateau point where you're just hammering away at a certain aspect of the movement. And this is one of the things that I always try to communicate with people, and it seems it's a hard thing to communicate when you haven't actually gone through the process, because it kind of just seems like I'm pulling you along for the sake of just continuing with me. You know, it's like, oh, I promise you're going to change. It's going to be better. It's going to be better. It's like, we've been at it 4 to 6, 8, 12, 20 weeks on this thing, and it's still not improving. And it's like, you'll be amazed at how much something can just flip. You know, like when I think about it with a lot of the work that I'd done with the back bridge. Suddenly in one of the days I was just like, how can I suddenly just do half of this stuff easily?
It was one session.
It was one session. It's like, that was the one. It's like that whole thing with, you know, was it the tent drink that got you drunk, or was it all the ones leading up to it? So it's like we dismiss that so easily, or we maybe forget that perspective that we have as a result of going through just a massive jump. You know, and you do need the time for that to have its impact. And when you get frustrated in the here and now, I think what you mean then with the group is the group can give you an opportunity to actually zoom out and just go, oh yeah, I am very frustrated right now with this. And it's just like, you could have just sat with that.
What was it?
That could have annoyed you.
We were doing with one of the days. Remember, I think it was the floor work or something.
Yes, like that. yeah. And I just
that was great.
I lost my shit.
That was it. That was only the beginning of the awareness of how ragey and frustrating.
But this is what I mean about looking back on some of the videos. Like I was looking back on, like, remember it was one of the things that I sent in a newsletter to email subscribers. I was like, you know, it's patience that I learned almost like initially from one of the sessions that we did. You know, we had just been in for the first week, you know, done loads of work on like handstands, back bridges, some precision jumping, all that sort of stuff. And my mind was like, oh yeah, we need to get like really good at this stuff straight away. So like, you know, you're going in and like, I was expecting to get like handstand holds after 1 week. And I was like, what a silly expectation to put upon myself.
Oh, and it's mental.
As a result of seeing like the rage.
Just
the stern rage. The eyebrows on me, where I was just, you know, jumping up into a handstand. And when I look back, it's it's all the things that are wrong with the handstand that like just weren't there. You know, I was really wide with them. I had no idea where my pelvic position was.
Mainly you're full of rage though.
But that was it. But it wasn't those things. It did. Those things didn't matter. It was the rage. That was the issue. Like,
That's it. Like it's, and this is the trickier side. Like I found since you dive in deep to a lot of this stuff and
Yes.
like reactivity or this kind of these more negative emotions, trying to show that somebody is there, and without it being like you're not trying to intentionally trigger someone. Like
Yes.
we were very open in the sense that we're showing the mirror and we're like, oh, okay, I'm doing that thing. But to show someone that sometimes potentially they it will turn, that if they haven't looked at them things in themselves, they'll get more angry potentially. They'll get more reactive if you're highlighting why are you getting so annoyed about this thing. But you need to go through that process. I think a lot of it.
I think the switch for me in that was realizing that everything can be a trigger. Like, yes, you're talking about a conscious trigger where the person is actively trying to make you see something. You're maybe probing, asking the questions and being like, you're fucking aggro right now.
You're bleeding
like,
from the nose.
Yeah, exactly. You're pointing out some more obvious things. But what I think was funny was part of the transformation throughout Vienna was the realization of maybe some unconscious ones where I knew you weren't trying to do something specifically, but I was being triggered by whatever it was
something
that you were
don't
doing.
know,
It's whether it was something you were doing or not doing. That put whatever it put me in the space to realize that was what was going on behind the scenes, and it's not.
Can you explain that a little
like
more?
In some sense, like say for example, I'm just doing something on a very regular basis that you yourself are taking as almost like a message. Like I'm going about and doing something, and I don't mean to intentionally make you feel the way that you're feeling, but as a result of me doing whatever, you're feeling some way about it. And it's the awareness of, oh yes, I'm the problem. I'm the issue right now.
It's not him.
It's not him.
Yeah.
Like it's certain things that will just make you go like, oh yeah, it's my idea of things need to go this way.
Yeah.
That is causing the emotional state, causing the trouble, making me feel that the way that I'm feeling. And when I think back, there's loads of opportunities. Like obviously we had a close relationship. We were living beside each other. Or we were living together for a brief period of time too. So that makes you fully aware of that the minute you're in close proximity to someone that's just doing their own thing, like that you're suddenly like, oh yeah, shit, like that's
got nothing to do with
it's all on me.
It's a hard one because it needs to happen regularly.
Yes,
this is the thing, like it needs to happen regularly and frequently. Like the fact that like it's a year, like a year of away from the other circles, so you've no kind of, what's the word, you've no really other way around it. Is you're gonna work with this thing, like so you can look at that in the sense of somebody working with a colleague that they don't like, and then it's like, well, why don't I like them? And it's like, well, they trigger me, and it's like, well, what are they triggering? Like, the questions I think about a lot of this stuff is that I got a massive trigger by somebody, whatever, it's the start of the year, and it was something.
Keep talking.
Just gonna go for it.
Check the time. Go on.
No worries. It was something that I'm so grateful on the other side of it, because it showed me somewhere that I wasn't looking, that I absolutely needed to look, and that's something that I think if you take that and use it in either movement or whatever, and just continue to use that, it's like when you get triggered, it's absolutely something inside you. You're getting angry, that's you, like it's all you. With the thing, I think in the it's the rail balancing, like you were saying, and something, you're like, Jesus, your rail balance is really good. You want to see me at the start of rail balancing. I got down off the rail and nearly cried one of the days. I was so frustrated, and I was like, where did this come from? Like, who are these expectations? Like, where did they come from? And then you're like, well, then you find out the answer, and you're just like, this is ridiculous. I was like, and then I started, re-narrating it. I'm like, how dare I think like I'm gonna step into somebody's field and be great at it? You know what I mean? Because then I used other people, like Maeve. I was like, people coming to her and she's a powerlifter, and you're like, you're just gonna step in. I want to be a powerlifter. It's like, yeah, no. It's like I started using all to try to cool down whatever, wherever them expectations were coming from, but that's again and again going to pop itself up, because if you're into movement and you want to be a practitioner in different fields, which is a lot of this stuff, you're going to meet that side over and over again. So it's better
in different ways, though.
In
It'll
different
disguise
ways,
itself, right?
100%. Like, what's the one? Coordination. I like coordination for me is brutal. Like, I feel like the freeze response is probably the best way to describe it. When we were first doing, remember the windmill?
Yes.
That one was like, my brain was a potato for 4 weeks. Like, so that showed itself, like you're saying, in a very different way from the frustration I got from handstands. It's more like fiery kind of anger with the handstands and whatever else, and this was just like confusion and brain fog. But it's still frustration in some way.
Yes.
But yeah, I think they're necessary. Like, I know some really great coaches that talk about frustration, and they're very well spoken, and they kind of break it down that, you know, it's a natural part of the journey. It's just what way it pops itself up. And
yes,
I think with handstands, you're going to have it for a long time, and just, you know, try to cool it down as much as you can. But then out of nowhere, like you're the one I was doing recently, where you're changing shapes and stuff like that. That is worth all of that, because it's this kind of where I wanted to get to be able to move and transition in the handstand. So most likely it's probably with that is looking at what the end is, your end goal, and looking at it going, I want to be able to do that, and you're so far off. So you just need to try to bypass these more negative, or, you know, perceived negative emotions, but they're part of the journey.
Yes.
But
that's what the practice
essentially is.
And it takes a while to really realize that, right? That like it's not just like, what I'm fascinated by is the necessary change that has to happen internally for an external change to actually happen. Like we were just referring to, in the sense that it's like, why am I just plateauing on this certain thing? And yes, of course, we're not going to deny the idea of, we need to be consistent, we need to repeat something in order to improve at it, and to give ourselves the input for the output to happen. But in that time, that condensed period, what's the internal state, or the narrative, something internal that's changed, that's potentially brought on and assisted, aided in the process.
100%.
Because there is something that needs to
change internally,
to change and happen. It's like every time we've had the meeting of frustration, or been met with that wall, there is an acceptance, a quieting down, an awareness of something that needs to just be reorganized.
Step aside a little bit. Like, so there's loads of different, you know, everyone and how they approach things are very different. Like, so like, I don't dip my toes into things. I like to go into it, and I'm doing it fully. If that doesn't work, then I've found at certain points when I'm you dabble towards a skill, like dabble forwards, you know, and I think that's a little bit more of a loose feeling to it, like than like, I'm in this and I'm doing it, like, you know what I mean. When you're committing to something, which I've only kind of learned, I'd say, in the last year, I can commit to doing something with no kind of, not a lot of effort mentally. It's like, I'm doing this thing and I'm gonna get good at that, and then that's it, you know. I've listened to people who've done that, like a girl, Soma, I can't remember the full thing, she's like a massage person. She does body work, and she's like, I heard her saying, I'm gonna do the 1 arm handstand, and that was it. Like, that was it, just like, you know, and then that's it. The journey starts, and then you need to find the process towards it, and then you can do it that way, or you can dabble at it and just say, I'm going to do this for the next few years, and just dabble bit by bit. There's two different sides of the coin. Is like, this thing is a baby, it needs to be taken time. It takes time, and but also, you know, that saying is like, take your time, but hurry up. You know what I mean? If you really want to get it, maybe like, you can do 10 minutes every day for the next 100 days, and you might have the skill. So I think like the biggest thing, like, from that there is that, what is your, like you said, your state like, and what's your mindset towards it. You can do un poquito, you can do a little bit, and just do a small bit, and just stick at it, and try to think more like a year than you know, than a few months. Like 3 months is what I do for online coaching minimum, and it's like, but you need to think a year. If you're any sort of change, like, might take a lot longer than that. Like, if you're changing your health, that's very long term. You know, if you're handstand, people who want to get really good at it and balance on their hands, it's going to be 2 years plus, maybe.
The way in which I feel like that's going, in a sense, is it's an awareness of you're doing this for the long term, but give yourself the chance to explore different things.
Yeah.
And not be too
Rigid.
rigidly thought that like this needs to be the way forward. It's more like, oh yeah, I'll play around with one or two different things in the short term, still giving it enough time. Like, as you said, 3 months is enough to really kind of see it change, but being aware that like, oh yeah, it's not like this is now just over and done with. I think that's what happened. I always try to keep that perspective, or give people that perspective when they're starting off something, like whether they're in the gym, whether they're trying out this class, that class, this type of activity. It's like, yeah, cool. Go and find something that you enjoy, that you like going to do, because you'll continue on with that thing.
Yeah.
And then if something else, if that loses its buzz over a period of time, venture into something else. Don't just stop.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't think that, oh yeah, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, no. There's
There's
it's
so
the
much out
opportunity
there
for us where we realize like, oh yeah, I just need to switch and broaden my perspective, thinking that this is the only way forward, and this is exactly the way things are supposed to be.
Especially with health and fitness. Like, that was something that I and you know, fitness background, I now want to just be continuous with movement practice and stay in that world. And it's the side of it is that you do the weights and you do this, you do cardio and you do weights, and it's like, yeah, but like, we know ourselves when we're working in a very busy gym, it's like they done the studies where it's 70%, I think, of people cancel after the third week of training. And it's something like that. Yeah, the drop off. Drop off is generally the third week if they don't have an intervene.
Yeah.
But for me, if you are one of them people, potentially you just need to find something that, and this will come from where some of my stuff comes from, or like where my pull would come from, is be curious about what is pulling your eyes. You know, if you're on social media, what are your eyes attracted? Like, do you find yourself in your material a lot of dancers? Are you attracted to the b-boys, or are you attracted to parkour? Are you in admiration of certain people? And they're really good. They're really good clues to find out what is my pull. Because if you don't have that, and then potentially you might float in and out of the gym, and you don't really enjoy the experience. You don't like the pump and a little giggle. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's if you don't really like it, then just open your mind towards anything that you're pulled slightly. I think that's a really big one for me. I was like, yeah, like, I'm done here with this thing. And I found with dance, I was interested in it way before I actually did it, but I just was afraid. You know, I was afraid that there's vulnerability. There's, you know, you've all the narratives and stuff like that behind saying, you're a lad. Maybe they're ones that I didn't know. That you're a man and all this other shit.
Yeah. Only
culture.
The environment is what exposes you
like
to
they're
that
all the
aspect
things
of
we're
yourself.
probably playing underneath that I didn't know of. But I had this thing. Then after a while, I was like, I'm missing the bus on purpose, and I'm doing all these things because I'm afraid. Yeah. So I joined it for a year. That's how I got over the fear. It was like, let's go, like, commit to something. And I think that's it. It's for me. It helped me have a lot of meaningful experiences with movement. I think it's worthwhile for anyone to kind of adopt that kind of outlook. Yeah. And really, when you sign up to something, you know, that you're potentially interested in, you pay up front, it's like you're in. You know, like, it's a really big thing. Like, I think to just sign up to something once you're falling off and stay open. Yeah.
I'm very conscious of time.
Yeah. What are you like?
I know for us. No. We can wrap it up here. I just it'll be very easy for us to go off on multiple tangents. And
I know.
Have something concise.
You're good at reeling it back in.
But we will certainly do these more in the future, where 100%. We can give ourselves an opportunity to expand out into these ideas. I think we've had loads of conversations about these things. I think that's certainly why I wanted to bring you onto the podcast and have a chat about these things, because maybe it'll actually give us a little bit more structure to how we're presenting something. It's not just you and me discussing it. It's 100%. Kind of like, oh yeah, how would I actually expand upon this idea if I was, I don't know, teaching it as well. You know, it's it affects your thinking in a certain sense. It makes it a little
Yeah.
bit more concise. But with that in mind, then, I certainly want to leave and help people get in touch with you as
Yeah.
well. So we've talked about handstands loads. I
Yep.
know you have something coming up.
Yeah, my workshop is going to be in Celbridge, Kildare. It's going to be on the 19th of August. And
Let's confirm that date.
no, it's because the date was changed yesterday.
I saw the promotional poster changing. Yes.
Yeah, so the date was changed yesterday, the other day before I
Saturday,
promoted
right?
it. It's the Saturday, yeah. It was just more about the time. It's gonna be on the 19th on Saturday, and it's gonna be from 12:30 till 2:30. So there's 12 spaces in total, and there's a few people that are interested from Celbridge, but
Nice. I'll definitely be there. I'll see.
it's for
I'll make
absolute
sure I have my
beginners.
diary gone as well. Like.
Doesn't matter what level you're at, it's going to be for absolute beginners, and just getting people away from the wall and more comfortable with the handstand. But yeah, that's it. It's in Cirque Fitness in Celbridge, Kildare.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll put links in the show notes of this.
Yeah.
How can people find out more about other stuff about you? You have an Instagram, right?
Yeah, just start like you were talking about there, just kind of trying to, again, it's challenging the narrative. I'm trying to get better at writing, and I haven't done that yet, so I was starting a newsletter and talking about multiple different topics that, again, are influenced from our experience in Vienna, going into different topics outside of movement that are relevant for movement practice. So that is, you can get the link on the Instagram, and yeah, if you
What's
want
your handle?
It's Adam dot O'Sullivan dot underscore. So there's an underscore there.
So Adam.O.Sullivan _.
Yeah.
Adam O'Sullivan, movement coach.
Yes. So that is me.
Nice.
And
I'll link to
thank
that
you.
again in the
Thank you so
showcase
much for
in
having
the
me
show
on.
notes. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to have you on. I think going forward it'll be nice to interview people like yourself again, get others on. I always feel like these conversations are like, it's good when you're tapping into something that's kind of mutually experienced, right?
Yeah.
It's only when you then put it into words you realise how deep something actually goes. It could be something in the back of the mind, and then something you're like, oh shit, there's something there. Like, so
yeah, it's nice. Like it's perfect timing, because I think after Vienna, you come home, you're settled in, you're like, Jesus Christ, it's been a great journey, and that's the intention, like for yourself and me as well. Like I feel that there's a need for this to happen a little bit more in terms of the adventures, these sessions. People who are listening or whatever, they should come to something that's open and have a good experience. I think that's the bigger picture that is a need out there for everyone. Like,
good. Cool. All right, then we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for coming along. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
It's a pleasure.